Hey, what's up, everybody? We are going to make a virtual environment and be able to use it in VS Code. It's going to be super simple. So let's jump right into it. I'm just in any project file on Windows 10, and we can just go right here and do a maybe like a command line app, something like that. So we're in our command line app, and then we could just open up VS Code here. Another option that you have is to keep your PowerShell handy. And we'll open up our VS Code there. And okay, so the next step is if we do Control, Shift, and the back tick. So Control, Shift, backtick. We can call this PowerShell. We should get our little deal popping up like that, our command line. So right now we don't have a virtual environment. We can drive this from either one of these windows. I kind of prefer to have something like this on the side. But what you want to do, make sure Python is installed. So I have 3.77. And then the next command that you want to do is python-m. And this is how I do it right now. There's a lot of ways that you could do this, but this is installing it locally in the file. So you can see as soon as I clicked on that, it started creating the virtual environment. So while it's doing that, check the Python version. Okay, it looks like our virtual environment is been installed there, and you can also see it right there. So let's make a little Python hello app. So in here, let's do something like main, and we'll call it entry point. So we're going to create an entry point function. And here we'll say something like, I am working. Okay, so you can see right now I'm getting some warnings because I like to use black and I like to use pylint. So this is great. Let's do this. Let's create a requirements.text. And let's just add those packages in here, because right now it's saying, hey, this is not installed. If we come in here and we say pip list, we should get the same results here. Pip list. You can see all this stuff. It says black is actually installed here, but the pylint is installed, so it's just having. Oh, I get what's going on here. So my VS Code has already picked up. You can see right down here, it's already picked up that there's a virtual environment installed locally here. So you can see that path. So we could enter an interpreter path, and I can go find that exactly the same way. So desktop, projects, command line app, and then inside of venv, and then I think it's scripts, and then you'll find this Python exe. That's the interpreter that you want to run. And this is the reason why I did this. It didn't create it right off the bat, but you want, when you see this VS Code file in here and then you click, this is your local settings. So see how your local settings, but if I do Control Shift P and I go and I type in settings and I go to the JSON file there, like this is your global settings. So what you want is to have your local settings pointing to the path of your virtual environment. Some people like to just keep it locally, and then when they're working with source control, they'll ignore the vem file or whatever you called your virtual environment. They'll also ignore things like the .vs code directory. So if we do git init, you can see the only things that Git is letting me work with is my ignore file, my little app, my readme, and my requirements.txt. So let's solve this problem, because right now it says the formatter black is not installed, pylint is not installed, but we can see globally they are installed. So since we have this little settings.json file right here, we know that we have access to this. If you're not able, like, you could manually, like, if I just copy this and put it in my readme real quick, and I delete this, and I'll set this to like my global interpreter here. So what did it do? Oh, it automatically recreated it again. Okay, great. So if I come in here, so see how it's set to my global interpreter right now? I can come in here and manually, like, I could have created this file, the settings.json, inside of a .vs code file, and I could just paste the path to my environment, and you could see immediately down here how it went to that. Now it's selecting that virtual environment. So let's go ahead and we're going to install black. I always like to pin it to a certain version, and I like pylint. These are like standard things, PyPI, that I start all my projects with. So I'll just copy the current version, or whatever version I want to use, and then I'll keep track of the little URL. Pylint. And then down here, because our virtual environment is not activated yet, but our VS Code knows that we have one. One of the ways you can do this, you could source it from here. You could say vem scripts activate, and then that's how you get it activated. Or since it's now automatically configured here, if you do your Control-Shift backtick, it should open it up inside the virtual environment. So that's pretty cool. But now that we're inside that virtual environment, you can just do pip install dash upgrade pip. This is kind of like the very first thing you would do, because sometimes if you don't do this, you'll get some warnings. So I'll go in here, upgrade pip. It says that error, but pip is actually installed or upgraded. Okay, so now if we do pip install -r for recursive requirements.txt, And this is cool to just have this command handy, because as you need to add more packages, you can just manage them in that requirements.txt file, and then just rerun this command. Just keeps it, I find it just keeps the workflow organized. Okay, so this right here was for in case you need to create your virtual environment reference manually. Okay, cool. So now, if we right-click back here, run Python file in terminal, it says I am working. So let's do something else to make sure that this is working, because I know for a fact. Okay, so if I type in here pip list, we have some things installed. We've got black. We actually have click installed, which that must somehow, black must use click. Click is really cool, by the way. But in here, if we do pip list, we see we have a different list, and I'm just going to make this brutally obvious. There's this thing called python.env. Python.env. Hold on. Python.env. There we go. So python.env, this is our global pip, and this is our local pip. And you can see that python.env it's not in here, and it's not in here. So let's go ahead, just to prove that we got everything working here. We're gonna install python.env. We're gonna pin it to this version. And what python.env is a way to work with .env secret files. So if we have, let's create something like Airtable API key, and that's equal to app, and then something like you would get this from your account, and it would be super secret to your account, basically. Maybe some other values in there, but this is basically a super secret thing that you would never upload into your source control. So we'll ignore the .env secret file. And then it's also good practice to copy and then paste and do some sort of env.template. And this would get, the env.template would go into your source control, but you would leave it blank. That way at least people know, okay, there's a environment variable that I have to fill in. Okay, so hopefully you've got that far. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're gonna do, now that we've added it to our requirements.txt here, we just run our install-r requirements.txt again, and then we go to pip list. We see python.env is installed here, but when we go back to pip list, we don't see python.env here. So we know for sure that this local virtual environment that we're running inside VS Code our project is now isolated. That's the whole mission here. And then we could just really quick, just to cap this off so it's not just all theoretical, this is how you use the python.env. So you create a settings.py folder, and then you load it, and then we would do something like this, except it's not a secret key, it's we call it Airtable You can call this whatever you want. Airtable API key, because that's just, but I like to, this is the environment variable name. You can call this whatever you want, because that's what you're going to reference it in your project as, but I like to just keep them the same. So save that, and then let's go into our hello app, and then we can say something like print and you'd probably never really print your API keys unless you're like print, unless you're trying to debug something. So I'm gonna just create a separate function called print debug, and then now the entry point, basically instead of running our entry point, we'll run this print debug function when we run main. Now this is not going to work right now because we haven't imported anything. So if we go into import from settings, import Airtable API key, now it should work. So you can see it printed out our little Airtable API key. But if I were to switch this environment over to my global environment, now when I run this, I'll get errors. Oh, I should get errors. Oh, it failed. It failed to set that path. Failed to set path. Unable to write into folder. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete that just to show you. Okay, let's close all that out. I'm gonna reopen VS Code. Okay, so we don't have, there's no virtual environment selected. It's trying to locate something that doesn't exist. 3.7. Okay, so now we can see we have a very special, okay, so that python.env is not installed. So if we try to run this hello app file again, it's gonna have an error saying that .env is not found. But now if we come in here and we change it back to our local virtual environment and then we try and run it, it works again. So that is full circle how you get a virtual environment to run in your VS Code. I love making videos. If you have any other ideas or questions on how to do things in Python or with VS Code, let me know. I am your resource here. I have a ton of energy to create this content for you. Also, check out the Profitable Python podcast, and it's on anchor.fm. We interview people who have real-world experience on monetizing their Python programming skills, and it's completely free, so you can learn this too. And I'll talk to you soon. Peace out, folks.